So are you feeling sleepy? Okay, so let me start with a question. How many of you can tell me what is the acronym of FOMO? But if you ask me, I would say fear of metric out. Because I'm very sure many of you are data engineers, and I believe you might have dealt with a lot of metrics in your career, right? So how many of you love to deal with metrics on day-to-day basis? Could you please raise your hands? Okay. So whoever has raised their hands, please stand up and tell me, why do you like metrics, or why do you love to deal with metrics? What is the biggest motivation behind loving to deal with metrics? Could you please tell me?
So for me, it's like more from the perspective of trying to identify noise from signal. From a quality standpoint, if there's like, let's say, a batch of bad data that is flowing in through our pipelines, I'd like to have certain observability and tracking set up on top of it to be able to flag records which are not necessarily of any value, so that I can sort of then build some sort of an elimination procedure to maybe purge them quite ahead in the process itself. So more from a DO standpoint, observability, but that's what I sort of deal with quite a lot in terms of our Delta live table pipelines running on Databricks, batch jobs, continuous jobs, so that sort of a thing. But hope that helps. Yeah.
Awesome. कुछ भी बोल दिया. Great. ठीक है. So, okay. So one of the worst nightmares of any data engineer is dealing with any metric. So let me share my screen and show you one pipeline. Okay. Okay. So are you guys able to see this? No? Now? Okay. So basically the metric is traveling from this side to this side, like how we travel from Hebal to Silk Board. So agar metric kahin pe bhi fat gaya, so how do you handle and how do you make sure that you are able to fix the metric? Anybody? What are the different ways you try to identify that a metric is having a bad data, and how are you able to solve it? What are the different techniques you follow? No one? Sorry? So if a metric is failing, okay, let's say you are tracking a metric, and if a metric failed, so at what stage you start looking at to understand where it got failed, and how will you troubleshoot it, and how do you debug it? Let's say there is orders. There are orders, right? So you want to figure out what are the average orders per session. Okay, let's say this is one of the metrics you're calculating. Let's say you got some 20 orders in the afternoon. So how do you know that this particular value makes sense to you? And okay, historical data. And what else? So how do you validate whether 20 is appropriate or not? Business rules, okay. Anything else? Expectations. What are those expectations?
We need to understand the trend.
Exactly, we need to understand the trend, right? That is one way. But let's say throughout your trend, if the metric is bad and you don't even realize, one fine day you realize that, okay, it gone wrong. So how do you make sure that your metric is appropriate?
Compare with source, reconciliation.
Exactly. There are reconciliation techniques, you compare with source, you do lot of things, right? But this is one of the nightmares of any data engineers, right? So this is what we are trying to solve at metricloop.ai. So basically metricloop.ai is a collaborative platform where you build metrics, create workflows to do end-to-end analytics, right? So at metricloop.ai, what we do is we use AI to identify the trends and various aspects of the metric, and then eventually figure out how the metrics are built, and we also make it config driven, right? So creating a metric from scratch is a tedious job. I wouldn't say it's a difficult job, but it's a tedious job. So at metricloop.ai, what we are trying to do is we are trying to automate and make it config driven, so that you can integrate within your APIs, you can integrate within your services, and also eventually build metrics without building anything from scratch. Okay. So could you please go to the slides? Okay. So we call it metric as a service. Basically the idea is, right from the time you want to build a metric and you want to identify different aspects or dimensions of the metric, and then eventually you want to validate that metric, we are tracking each and every aspect of the metric, right from the manifestation till the creation of the metric, and then eventually validating the metric. Okay. So if you see the facts, data engineers spend more than 44% of their time on data preparation, and 69% of the companies report inefficiencies in integrating the data from multiple sources. And the traditional reporting is very slow, and it is very inflexible to keep up with the pace of the modern business, right? So some of the challenges are, we have data silos hindering the process or the progress. We have manual reporting drains, and we have dashboards which fall short. Okay. The solution is, we are making the metric creation and the ETL creation config driven. So basically we can seamlessly gather the metrics from any source you already want to use, and you can apply business logics, not just any formulas, but also various kinds of transformations. And we also centralize the metrics in a platform, and we also maintain the agility and speed by using configs. So with config driven ETL, we can see a 30% increase in the accuracy and also relevance of the metrics. So basically metricloop.ai is your co-pilot to build metrics without having any hassles, and you can integrate with your platforms, with your APIs and various other services. And we also provide the features of collaborating. So it has a Jupyter notebook kind of interface where you can create different analysis, create metrics. You can have integrations to various APIs, various tool sets and databases. You can create workflows either through the UI or using the config driven APIs or the manifestation, which we are going to talk about in a moment. And it also provides a command line interface, just like how in Kubernetes you create a manifest, you do kubectl apply. The same way, you create a metric manifest and you do metric CTL apply, something like that. You will eventually see that a workflow is getting generated, a metric is getting created. You can track the entire life cycle of the metric. Yeah. So to talk about some of the features of these collaborative interface. So you can have role-based access control to handle the access control to various stakeholders of the metrics, be it the team members or the business stakeholders or your customers, right? And also it has a version control where you can track how your metric is evolving, how your metric is changing. And also, just like your GitHub or the Git enterprise, the same way you can also go back and forth with respect to the versions so that you don't lose the track of how the metric is getting evolved. And you can also share the knowledge base through documentation. And also you can add your team members, your stakeholders to the project so that you can all collaborate in a single pane of window where you will be able to collaborate with each other without juggling between multiple tools and technologies and build the metrics seamlessly. So we can also integrate with the data stack of your whatever your company follows. So basically there are connectors, we call them as triggers and integrations. So you can integrate with various kinds of data sources, and you can also perform different kinds of transformations, different actions. You can also use AI to incorporate while building the metrics and then eventually create the metrics. And we also provide automated ETL, which is a config-driven ETL, where we have created a template where you can feed in all the information to the template and you can integrate with the APIs so that your metrics will be created and you don't need to spend a lot of time creating the metrics. So you can also build flexible visualizations by integrating with dashboards like Power BI, Metabase, and whatever dashboards you follow or use in your company. And it also helps you to do granular filtering and also seamless collaboration. So you can also collaborate with your team members and stakeholders to validate your dashboards, and it's a tool where you can collaborate with your team members without moving away from the platform and spending a lot of your time on various tools and technologies. You can use a single pane of window to build the metrics without any hassle. So what is the future of metric insights on demand? So basically we can have real-time monitoring of the metrics. We will know what is happening with our products or services in real time. And also we can do predictive analytics. Let's say we want to do some kind of forecasting. We can integrate within the workflows so that our algorithms will be taking all the metrics which are calculated and then create insights or further execute further workflows, right? And it also enables you to send automated alerts to your Slack channel or various other integrations where you can send reports to the emails, or you can send messages to your Slack, or you can also send messages over WhatsApp. So it has all kinds of integrations. And it also provides you intelligent recommendations. By leveraging the AI, we can have a set of recommendations based on the kind of workflow patterns we are designing. And then eventually we can gain more ideas out of how efficiently we can build and how to optimize. So one of the major factors of creating various metrics is we spend a lot of money, right? So I remember in one of my previous organizations, we were spending more than 2 crores per month only on maintaining the metrics, maintaining the sanity of the metrics, and various aspects of the metrics. So with this approach, you can go with the subscribe or pay as you use model so that you can reduce the costs, so that only when you are building a metric or using a metric, then only you can pay. Otherwise, you don't need to spend costs on the infrastructure. So you can master your data by unleashing various kinds of metrics using metricloop.ai. And it's a one-off kind of platform where you can do end-to-end and handle the end-to-end life cycle of the metric without juggling between multiple tools and technologies. So if you have any questions or anything, you can contact me at phanikumar@metricloop.ai. Before I wrap up, I would like to show a simple demo. Could you please search? Okay. So typically, this is how a manifest file looks like. Let's say sales conversion rate, right? So here we have a description, we have the logic using which we want to calculate this metric, and also we have the business owner, business rules. Somebody rightly mentioned we can use business rules to do different kinds of validations, right? So we can configure the business rules. We can also have various validation rules, and we can have comments. We can also add our data sources from where we can read the data. We can add all the configurations associated to it. So basically, this entire manifest file is nothing but to build a metric. We can also leverage the AI to manifest this metric by providing some prompts, right? So as soon as we have this kind of manifest file, what we do is we typically, so I just made a simple demo for the sake of this talk. So basically, there is a web service which takes a metric manifest as a payload, right? And it stores the metric in a database, and then it translates that manifest into the workflows and then certain calculations, right? So so basically, by taking the manifest file, what we have provided, it will convert that manifest file into a directed acyclic graph and create a workflow, right? Whatever dependencies we want to maintain while building the metric, we can also provide that as part of the manifest file. Using these configurations, it will be converting the configuration into a directed acyclic graph, and then eventually it will execute that workflow. Typically, the workflow looks something like this. So the manifest is converted into an Airflow DAG, right? And using the kind of executors or using the kind of orchestrator we want to use behind the scenes, we can either use Kubernetes or we can use Celery, right? We can configure that, and then eventually it is converted into a DAG, and the metrics are stored in certain models where we will use these data to gain some insights and also create dashboards. We can also send nudges. We can also integrate with various other aspects of your data pipeline, and then eventually use these insights to gain more understanding about your business. So basically, it's a config-driven ETL. So let me quickly execute this. Okay, so this test underscore e2e.sh, it is simple script which will test the end-to-end. So basically, we are creating a metric by sending a payload like this. So it has a metric name, it has an expression using which you want to calculate the metric, and this will be stored in the database. And using that, as and when we post the data to the API, so it will start calculating the metrics, and then eventually it will we are simply tracking the status of the metric, right? Are you able to see the font? Okay. So we have created the metric, and the data has been posted to this particular metric definition, and it started calculating the metric, and we see that it is successfully calculated. So let's see the salary dashboard to understand whether it has. Okay, so let's go through this task one more time. So basically we have provided this input to the metric, and as and when we provide this input to the metric, it is getting calculated using the formula we have submitted to the pipeline, and then the pipeline will start calculating the metric and then store in the corresponding sink based on how we have configured in the manifest file. And then we can also integrate with our dashboards as well as few other let's say if we want to send the report to our Slack channel, or we want to send it as an email, so we can integrate as part of our pipeline, I mean the manifest file, and then it will eventually translate it into insights. Along with that, we can also add auditing rules, and also we can add health rules, so various other rules as part of this, and we can generate the pipelines without writing any piece of code. So that's all I wanted to